I have Curt Walters here today, and we're doing a podcast I've been wanting to do for a very long time.
Thank you.
I've been a fan of you forever. I mean, literally, I think ever. And you're just one of the great Grand Canyon painters of the 20th century. I mean, there's
Thank you.
only a handful of people that probably can fall into that category. Most of probably are dead now. And so I know, right? But
it's true.
It's an image that's hard to learn to paint, right? I would think it's one of those things that really is.
The first ones were very difficult to do. It took me a long time, but a young guy, I decided that that's what I wanted to do, and so
specifically the Grand Canyon.
Specifically the Grand Canyon,
because it was the most challenging landscape in the West.
When I was 19, I had my first car.
Yeah.
And so I was driving, totally broke. I had like $10 in quarters.
Right.
And so I go driving over to Grand Canyon, not too far. I grew up in Farmington, Mexico. So it was a drive across the Navajo lands. And but anyway, I arrived there, and it was mind-blowing to me how beautiful and big it was. I tried painting, and it was really, really bad.
Do you know where that painting is, or did it get destroyed long ago?
No, that one got tossed in the trash can. But the lesson was simple, which is that, okay, this is something I want to learn to do. This is my challenge, and I look back now and realize that was a moment of epiphany for me, that I was ready. I needed that place, that time, and it was just mind-blowing.
Challenge, maybe,
I
too.
needed that challenge.
Yeah.
It gave me something more to focus on.
Yeah.
There was not any art around me growing up, or good art.
Yes.
And so when you first see really great art, I think by the time I was 19, I was ready for that. So I needed a direction
For that challenge.
So, yeah.
And you said there was no good art around you. You grew up in Farmington, right?
Farmington.
Yeah, I want to hear. So we're both New Mexicans. I want to hear about that. I mean, there is some great beauty there for sure.
Oh,
yeah. Shiprock is one of my most favorite places.
I repainted Shiprock. I used to do a lot of them when I
Yes.
was in Farmington,
Yeah.
because I could pay my rent if
Yeah.
I painted Shiprock. but I repainted it last year
Yes.
for the first time, and it was in Prix de West. It was I won Buyer's Choice Award for it, by the way.
Yes.
But anyway, I think it's dramatic, and
It's one of my favorite iconic images.
I know it's iconic. It is for sure.
Don't you think that had to affect you seeing? Because you could see it pretty much from the horizon at any given time,
We
right?
could see it from our farm,
Yeah.
where I grew up.
Yes.
And so it was always part of the thing, you know. And, when you're a teenager, you go drive out there and drink a beer, you know. That was a long time.
So you growing up in Shiprock, that was probably a kind of a tough place to be an artist, I would think.
I grew up in La Plata,
Yes,
which
okay.
is north of Farmington, towards the Hesperus
Yes.
side of the valley. And so Shiprock was not too far away. It was
Yes.
20 minutes away.
Yes. And when you were a little boy, you knew you wanted to be an artist, right? Early on?
I always knew I wanted to be
Yes.
an artist. My parents were not keen on that idea, because I was very dyslexic. Growing up in school, they told me I was stupid and didn't pay attention and didn't do my lessons and all that stuff.
Right.
It was a different time when dyslexia was not.
Right.
They didn't understand it, and they had no diagnosis for it, and so kids like me were just considered stupid.
Yeah.
And so I always wanted to paint, but the teachers would tell my parents, no, he was wasting his time drawing. He needs to be reading and studying. And so they refused to get me a paint set. And so they would appease me with paint by numbers. And it's
Right.
I can't stand this.
Right.
And stuff like that. And finally, oddly enough, my father, for some reason, bought my sister a paint set. And I was angry. I was angry at that. I was 13, I guess. I was really angry that she got a paint set and I didn't. And so I watched her for a while, and said, here, I'll show you how to do this. And so,
and you took it over, basically.
I kept the paint set.
And he
stolen paint set.
And he was a farmer, rancher?
He was a pretty multi-character. He was actually a dentist. He had his practice in Farmington. He also had a degree in agriculture from Oklahoma, and he also had a degree in psychology from the University of New Mexico State. And so he's a really bright guy. But we lived up in the farm, and he wanted to raise cows, and so the dental office paid for his cows, basically.
And he probably wanted you to be a professional of some type.
He was convinced that I should be an orthodontist. Well, I was just not. It's like, okay, I don't get it, Dad. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, and he couldn't recognize your abilities. I mean, it probably showed right away, right?
It was. He had done a little bit of painting, so he was not adverse to it.
Right.
But he still felt like I was lacking in my education, and so all of these things were all at play. I finally won a second place ribbon at the county fair.
It's a big deal.
And the next year I won a first place ribbon. And so at that point, it's like, okay, I'll teach you how to stretch canvas, how to make your own stretcher bars and all of that sort of thing. Right. And he sent me up to the local ladies that were doing art to try to learn something. And I just learned a lot of bad stuff, actually. But it was kind of...
And how old were you when you got those ribbons? Do you remember?
14 and 15 years old.
Pivotal times, actually.
Yeah.
It showed you could do this.
Well, what it was for me is that it gave me a focus, gave me something that I realized I could do well, that I didn't have to have when you're dyslexic like me, you're not good at sports, and you're not good at reading, and you're not good in the academic side. I was a pretty unhappy kid.
I bet.
And so the art gave me a focus and gave me something to feel proud about myself.
Yeah, I can see why you went to the Grand Canyon and picked that as your main thing. I mean, what better thing to pick than the hardest thing, right? To give you focus, right? That's going to give you focus for a very, very long time. Yeah, and it did clearly. But
it's been good to me all my life.
So when you're getting ready to graduate from high school, what was your plan at that point? Obviously, you wanted to get the heck out of Farmington, I'm sure.
Well, I begged my father to let me go to New Mexico State, because of course that's where all my friends were going.
Yes, that's where I went, by the way.
And well, so what happened is that my SAT scores were not high enough for that, and so they go like, well, here, go to junior college. Yeah. So I went up to it was a branch in New Mexico State. Yes. And the good thing that happened there is that there's a professor by the name of Lola Furman. She had studied with Kenneth Adams, and so she had she herself was not a great painter or a great artist, but she had that discipline about her. It's like Curt, learned to squint, and she started in on the concepts of form and all of those sorts of elements of painting that I knew nothing about, of course, and first time I've been in a figure painting class and all that sort of thing, and so it was cool.
And you're like 18 at this point,
I was like 18, 19 years old. Yeah.
And now this would have been 68?
68 and 69.
Yes.
69.
So a lot of crap's going down in the world in America at that time, too.
It was, it was the age of the Vietnam War. Yes. And my draft number was high enough that I didn't have to go in.
Yes. Do you remember what it was?
258 or something.
I bet you remember that day when they picked it, when they did.
Wheels. All that. Those were the times. Yes. And a whole bunch of my friends went into the war.
Yes.
And some of them didn't come back. So, this those were frightening times. And
Very frightening.
kids, and it was the age of free love and bell bottoms and all that stuff.
Right. Did you want part of you go, I want to go experiment and see what this is?
Oh, a big part of me did.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah, it did.
But it's hard when you grow up in Farmington to know how to escape or how to go to that next place.
It was very hard for me.
Yes.
And but I ended up going to I was in the thing that happened is that of course I'm eager to get on with my life, and so I'm convinced, and so I did this little. A couple of my friends got together and said, "Well, here, let's do it." I won the grand champion prize at the county fair.
Okay,
and so this is like in the adult competition. It was a big deal.
That's a big deal, and that's you're like 18 or 19.
I was 19 then.
19.
And so my friends get together and they say, "Well, here, let's do an art show." And so and so sure enough, I had this little like one-man show at the shopping center. There was a vacant space, and
I bet that was thrilling.
Oh my God, it was thrilling. It was so cool. That was a big moment for me.
Yeah, and it cements in your mind you are an artist.
Yeah.
You won the main prize and the biggest deal that's in your county.
That's right.
And you're having a one-man show of your art.
And I'm a kid.
Yeah, you're 19.
I was good. It was good. It was pretty amazing. But so I was convinced at that point that, of course, I was a big, strong guy and I could go make it on my own. And so I moved in with a friend to share an apartment in Farmington, he was terrific and the place was terrific. But, so I found that I had to have a little part-time job to get by. And I was still going to school. And so, anyway, I made it.
Yeah. So you worked part-time. You went to school full-time. And did you have a vision of what you wanted to do or see?
I always knew I just wanted to paint.
Paint.
That was my goal, to paint. Did I have a real focus? Probably not. I don't. Because when you're looking at all the art and going to all the galleries and you're young people are jotting around and looking for what they need.
Right, at that moment, generally.
Yeah.
And so you finished the junior college at NMSU in the San Juan?
Well, I didn't finish. I was there 3 years, and then I had this idea that I had to be married, and so I got married.
Okay, all right. I mean, that's what people do when they're young.
Yeah, 1 week after my 21st birthday. It was not a real bright decision, but anyway, I have 2 great daughters. And
from that. Yeah, so you got married, and that put you in a different trajectory for a while, I'm assuming.
It did, and it wasn't too long after that. And so I had a little art gallery space, and I taught art classes and sold a few art supplies.
And that was in Farmington?
And that was in Farmington, and it worked for about 2 years, and then I decided that, and then there was a gallery, and I got a story for you. This is a true story.
Yes.
So there was I also showed art at my father's dental office.
Okay.
I would wherever you could sell it.
That's what artists do.
Yeah.
Right.
Wherever. And so, an art gallery dealer by the name of Thelma Dodson was in Farmington for some reason and broke a tooth. And so she went to my dad's dental office. And she says, "Well, here, I like this painting." And so Dad says, "Well, here he lives just down the street." So, and so she comes over and she sees my art, and sure enough, she lets me come put some work in her gallery on a part, as a trial basis. And I started doing really well. And so, about a year later, I found myself about 3 years later, I found myself in Taos.
So, and where was her gallery, Thelma's gallery?
Oh my gosh, it was right there on right cat corner from the square.
Yes.
So it was a great location, and they sold a lot of my paintings.
And
they weren't very expensive.
And this is in Farmington, right?
No, Taos.
So she's in Taos.
She's in Taos.
I see. Okay, so that's why.
So that's why. I'm sorry, I didn't explain that.
Yeah.
She was in Taos.
Yes.
And so I got, and that's how I ended up moving to Taos.
So you were selling lots of art, and did she encourage that, or did you just say, "I'm going there because this is obviously where the action is"?
Oh no, she kind of encouraged it.
Yeah.
And that's where the action was. It was. I was a very smart move on my part. And probably the best move I ever made.
And why do you think that?
Because that's where I really learned to paint. And I started knocking on doors.
A lot of artists there, a lot of
artists. Yeah, so I don't know if you remember, but Rod Goebel was there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You remember
Taos 6, right?
He's part of the Taos 6 crowd.
Yeah.
And so I got to be friends with a number of them and I'd go painting with them.
Yes.
And they would let me come along. I was at first it was terribly embarrassing, but I got better at it. But
you're like 23 or 24?
Yeah, I was like 24 then.
Yeah.
And so it just became the plein air thing was, it was already in me. I was doing that anyway, but there it was like a lifestyle. It was that's what you did every day. You picked up your brushes and you went outdoors and you painted, and that was pretty cool.
And this is early 70s, right?
This is early mid 70s.
Yeah. So they still have the communes that are going on, and a lot of
they were all over the place.
Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. That
had to kind of blow your mind too.
Oh my God! All these guys and these women all living out there in the hills, and
right?
It was like,
I remember Taos at that time. I went up there. I was younger than you, but I can remember it was a different kind of.
Oh, it's a very different vibe back
it's
then.
Hard to imagine actually compared.
Yeah.
And you had Dennis Hopper up there. And,
I see. Yeah, I saw him on the streets many times, or in the bars drinking.
Yeah, because it was a small little town. So you start working with people like Rod Goebel and who else?
And
what other?
Walt Gonski.
He's fantastic.
Yeah,
too.
Gonski's terrific. But I think that the most important thing that really happened to me is that I wrote a letter to Wilson Hurley and went down to visit him.
Right.
And I learned a great deal from him.
Yeah.
He was very kind and very generous to me and showed me all my. He would explain
why,
and he put my little paintings up on the easel, and here would be his giant paintings,
right.
big monstrous paintings, in the studio, and he would look at my little paintings, and, and one day he goes like, "Curt, this hillside goes like this," and all of a sudden, with a gesture of a hand, the world opened up for me. I understood the broad landscape, and you can see it in Maynard's work too. You can see when that understanding of that broad landscape becomes an element in your mind, and you understand it, and you can see it in all artists. It kind of there's a point.
Yeah.
When they understand that. Well, but that moment came for me, and it was like my second visit down there, and I was just like, oh my God, I get it. I get it. All those little cubes and cones and all that nonsense, all these little still lives, that Lola had me painting, and I was like, oh, I get it. It's like I get it. I could see it small, but I couldn't see it broad.
Yeah,
and that's kind of.
And that's what he's known for, right? I mean, he's known for those big, monstrous landscapes, of New Mexico.
Of New Mexico. And everything had a top and bottom and a side to it, and everything was, that's the way he painted clouds and the landscape.
And did you flip right there as far as what you did subject matter? Did you go?
No, I don't think I flipped, but I think it just let me understand.
Yes.
And so I started looking at the world in a different way. It was my subject matter, but I started looking at it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And then, so this is mid 70s.
Yeah.
Do you continue to work with Wilson Hurley for a while?
I do, for quite a while actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time.
That's amazing too that they allow that.
I go over about once a year and let him work my work.
And this is in Albuquerque?
Yeah, in Albuquerque. Yeah. It's a big giant studio.
Yeah, right. I mean, he was kind of probably at, maybe not at his prime, but getting there for sure. I mean, he was a big deal at that point.
He was a really big deal then.
Yes.
And so I don't know, I learned a great deal. He was very kind to me.
Yeah. Artists need that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure you've done that to others as well. I'm sure you've helped people too.
I think he had a huge impact on a lot of artists.
Yes. And you do too. Not only him, but you too. I'm sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably not up to you to see it, but others will, I'm sure. I have no doubt. So how long, when you're in Taos, how long do you stay with the current gallery that found you in the dental office?
I was there until she closed, which was about a year after I moved from there. So I moved in Thanksgiving of '79
Yes.
to Sedona. And I thought...
And why Sedona? What was that move?
You know what the real truth was?
Yes.
Well, I had won the Stacy Scholarship.
Tell us about that. What is that?
Well, Stacy Scholarship is for young artists between the ages of 21 and 30.
Yes.
And if you look at the resume of a lot of these really great Western artists, you'll see the Stacy Scholarship there. And it was, and Aubrey Allen McGrew was the chairman of it. And the year I won, Burt Proctor was on the board, and so was Lockheed.
Wow.
Robert Lockheed. And so I wanted to win this. So, and it wasn't very much. It was a couple of $1,000.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The
Right.
point is that it was the name of the scholarship.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, after winning this, that was in '77. Trailside Galleries calls me. And so did La Galleria, who used to be up in Sedona. Ernestine Nestler, she had her gallery. She knew what the scholarship was, and Trailside knew immediately what it meant.
Right.
And so they called me and said, bring some work. And so I headed down the way with my paintings, and all of a sudden I was selling art.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit it quickly.
Really
Christine
selling art.
Mulring.
Right.
Yeah.
I was selling art. And so I decided that it would, and I love Sedona, so I decided that I would move here. And the other reason is, for some reason, I thought it would save my marriage.
Right.
And, it's a pretty common kind of psychological thing.
Right.
That happens to a lot of people, not just me, but...
Sure. Do whatever. A lot of times they go, let's have kids. That's one. Yep.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do to try to,
to kind of make it say, well, of course it didn't work.
Right.
It's well.
Yes, no, it was, that one was probably going to fail, I'm afraid. And so you're in Sedona.
Yeah.
And at this point, then you get divorced and you're now...
well, the big thing that happened to me is that I met Tom.
Yeah.
And so we've been together ever since. So
how many years? That's a long time.
40 years next month.
40 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But we lived in a couple of different houses and stuff.
Yes.
My ex-wife wanted to move back to Farmington, so I bought her out of her part of the home and remodeled it, and Tom and I have been there for quite a while.
Yeah. And so when you're in Sedona, do you look for a gallery there as well?
No.
Yeah, it's
when La Galleria closed.
Yes.
I kind of I had Trailside.
I was about to say you had Trailside, right?
And
they probably could sell almost everything you got, I would think.
Trailside sold pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And then I also had a gallery in Santa Fe. I had Alderman. I was with Linda McAdoo for a while.
Yes, right.
And then I was with Alderman Morris.
I remember that
actually.
So
I was selling and still sell pretty much everything I do.
Right. Yes. And so when you're in Sedona and you're in Arizona again.
Yeah.
Is at this point you really go, okay, let's really focus on the Grand Canyon. You're not that far from the Grand Canyon.
It was
geographically.
I made a conscious decision. That's part of the reason I moved to Sedona.
Yes.
Because I wanted to be close to Grand Canyon, and I mean I've had my moments, where I've gone to kind of. Okay, here I'll just tell you the truth.
Yeah, let's hear that. That's what we want. That's what we want to know. Yeah.
The truth. Truth is that I had tried to get into. I wanted to be in NAWA. That was just my thing. I wanted to be in that great Prix de West show
yes.
at the National Cowboy Museum. That's what I wanted.
Yes.
And so I would send in my my slides back in those days and send my biography every year and every year I got a rejection letter and so finally I kind of like, oh, screw you, and so I started painting. I decided I was going to paint whatever I wanted to paint, and rather than focusing on the West. And so I made several trips to Europe, and I painted in France, those experiences. I painted in Bali, and I went to, Switzerland, and I did all in Italy, and I did all these things. I started painting all these places, and I really actually had a great time. And I found, because I would try those subjects that my heroes had tried, and I wanted, you want to try that
your
stuff.
lily pads. I remember it very well, and I remember them winning an award.
Actually, they did.
Yes, I was there at that. Yeah, I remember seeing that painting.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, tell us about that painting. We're going to just this one painting because it was so phenomenal.
Well, I would say it had to be in Prix de West. It has to be Western subject matter. But I found this pond in Albuquerque.
Yes.
And so I went down and painted lots of water lilies that they had called Shady Lakes. And one year at Linda McAdoo's gallery, I did a whole room full of nothing but water lily paintings.
Yes.
She painted the walls blue for me. It was very cool. Very cool show. But I just experimented with a lot of stuff, and it was really good for me. And finally, I know, but this is kind of crazy, but NAWA underwent some changes, and so the National Cowboy Museum disbanded NAWA, and then they said, goodbye, guys. And because it was a pretty tight group of artists, they wanted to expand the show, make it bigger. And so Wilson Hurley said, well, I'm out of here. And the day he said, I'm out of here, they picked up the phone and called me. And so that's why I got in the show in 1998. I will tell you a quick story about that. So of course my first show, I was really nervous, and and I wouldn't take Tom with me because he didn't want. He thought it would hurt me to go with me.
Yes.
And so we went. So that night so I had a big Grand Canyon there, and no creek and a smaller Grand Canyon, but so there was a tornado. Tornado comes, and so all my work sold during the show, and so I was really excited. But the tornado comes along, and so during the banquet they send everybody to the basement, and so we come back up, to the cold steaks and warm salads, and there was like the 60-watt bulb burning. It's all emergency light, and so they announced the Buyer's Choice Award, and it was my painting. And so I gave my acceptance speech with a
hand-held mic.
With the mic, with one of those big horns, It was pretty hysterical. But it's really my favorite award. The thing that is kind of this happened with Prix de West is that I belonged there. They accepted my work, and I felt really good there. And of course, I knew all the artists and a whole bunch of people, and so I never had a time when I felt like I was really super uncomfortable there. It was because I already knew all of them.
Yes.
So
and they knew you too as the buyers because a lot of them had your paintings in their house.
A lot of them already owned them.
Yeah.
So I was good. I was really good when I got there, and I'd been showing at the Artists of America show already, and so I was on my way.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge deal to get the buyers.
Oh, it's a big deal. In my first show.
And the first show.
It was my very first show.
Has that happened before? Has that happened?
I don't know.
I mean, that seems.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because you've won like 13 awards or something, right? More?
Yeah.
More than that?
I've won 8 Buyer's Choice Awards at Prix de West.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I know that's a big. That is a record. Actually, that's the record. I won 3 Frederick Remington Painting Awards for Best Painting.
Yes.
In the show, and I've also won the Prix de West.
Yes.
So, I've done really well.
Well, they see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And were you kind of one of the few, because I was just at Prix de West and I saw you there and had a great time. Really enjoyed that show. Everyone should go to that show, by the way. But it seems like landscapes still aren't the majority of the work. It seems like it's in the minority.
It is still in the minority there.
Yes.
The cowboy still dominates that show.
Yes.
Figure work still gets more respect than landscapes. And I mean, I understand it, but that's
just the way it is.
That's the way it is.
Yeah. their show.
It is. It is their show.
Yeah, and there is something to be said about that. If it is your show and you can pick who you want and have who you want. But I will say, the quality of the artist is very strong.
It is
Very strong.
No, it's a tough competition.
Yeah.
And so when you walk in the door, if you've done a good job or not. And,
right.
I did a good job this year, by the way.
Yeah, very good. And you're not painting as much as you used to, right? You really have cut back on that.
Not that I've cut back. They just don't happen as fast. I try, but they don't seem to. I'm not 40 anymore.
Right. And when you say they don't come as fast, is it you spend the same amount of time and effort at it? It's just that it's.
I probably spend more hours at it now than I used to, but they just don't happen as fast. I don't know what is going on in my brain make that happen. But
yeah, well, maybe part of it is you don't have to make them happen as fast.
Probably, I think I worry about. I want them really, really good because I put really big price tags on them, and I want them to be really good. And I think that's probably natural.
Yes, and I think it's good for the clients too because they realize, okay, there's not going to be many paintings that are going to be available. Period.
There's not many of them.
Yeah, you're going to either pay this and you're going to get one, or you're just never going to get one.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's usually they're not going to get one.
Yeah,
because I don't know. It's like the commission paintings, and I don't do very many of them. I do very few of them.
Yes,
but oh my God, they just eat me alive. They take so much out of me to do them.
Emotionally,
they're emotional to do.
Yes, and
so I put it off as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I've told people, when they want to get a commission from an artist, say if you're going to do it, first of all, give them complete latitude.
Yeah.
You can say for the Grand Canyon, you could, from this point of view, that's it, and let
it's pretty like so I just try not to do them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think collectors don't understand that usually when you ask an artist to do a commission, you may not get the best results unless you give them free will to do they want to do.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
And I have done commissions myself with artists, and I give them complete.
It's the only way to get a good painting.
It is, because otherwise they get caught trying to think, how do I do this?
It's that constant thing, which is, well, we want a painting like the one you did over here.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to get a painting like that.
No. So
I've already done that painting. We have to do something else.
Right. And it would be like if you asked me to write a book like the Butterfly Twins. Just write one kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I'd be like,
no.
No, first of all, I can't because it would be a flop.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
It's like catching, lightning in a bottle. You do it when you do it. It's a creative process. And, people need to understand this from artists, that this is the way it is.
It's true. It is the way it is.
Yes. So when you win that big award, and it's your first time in the Prix de West, how did that change the trajectory, or did it, of your career?
I think it totally changed my
I would
life.
assume it would.
It did. It totally changed my life. I think that everyone saw my work differently at that point.
Yes.
They realized that I think it just changed everything.
Yes.
It did. The shows are not for young artists. I think you have to be mature enough and strong enough to be able to handle those shows. There's a lot of pressure. It's like, to get the deadlines and do the stuff, and they always want the same thing over again, and so it takes a lot of, you have to be a real artist to say, well, I've done that, I'm not doing that again.
Right.
And you can see the artists that got in young, and they get very repetitive and that sort of thing.
And I can also say that it can be ego smashing at times, because you can put the greatest show together I mean, great work. And for whatever reason, maybe nothing sells. And it has nothing to do with your paintings.
It has nothing to do with the paintings.
Yes.
And the judging has nothing to do with your paintings.
Correct.
It depends on who's in the
At
jury
that
room
moment.
that day, at that moment.
That is 100% correct.
And so you never know. You never
Right.
know what's going to happen. I'm really lucky. I usually sell out every year, but there were some artists this last year that just sold nothing, and you hurt for them so
Yes.
bad. I really hurt for them.
Yes,
It's
especially
hard.
when you see some of the work that doesn't sell and you go,
so-
these are
sometimes-
some of the best pieces.
And sometimes they're the best ones.
They are.
That's usually what the problem is.
Yes.
It's like, and you feel terrible for them.
Yeah. So I think that is a good takeaway for people is, and as a collector, if you're at a show, like just say the Prix de West, and there are paintings that have not sold, that doesn't mean they're not good.
Oh, not at all.
Often they may be the best painting even.
Sometimes they're the best ones.
Yes, that they are artistically, at a different level, and for whatever reason, whether it's price or timing or whatever, it didn't sell. But trust me, I've gotten paintings from those shows and sold them immediately as soon as I get them, because then they're just they're in a different spotlight, and people go, oh, well, this is a great painting. I just had one the other day like that. Somebody sent it, they didn't sell it at a show. I sold it in a day. I was like,
No, it really does happen.
yeah. So your trajectory changes
Yeah.
when that happens, and then how does it change? In what way? I know they see you differently, but is that from price structure changes or just demand?
I think it came. Well, I think the galleries saw the work differently. They realized that a lot of things kind of happened all right then at that time level, and so I got involved with the Grand Canyon Trust, and so. Conservation group and I'd been studying air quality for a long time, and so it was showing up. I don't talk about it too much, but it's part of all of my visions of the Grand Canyon, and so but anyway, so I decided I needed another way to express myself about Grand Canyon, and in 1999 I did this river trip. Down the Colorado River with all these artists, and we did the show, and so Kip Forbes gave us a show in New York and one in San Francisco, and it was a big deal.
Yeah,
and,
I remember that show.
And it got lots of news, and I was on CBS Sunday Morning and all this stuff. It was pretty awesome. and so I mean that was a long time ago now, but it really did sort of cement a part of my career at that point.
Right.
And it was a really good show, and it changed the way people saw my paintings, I think.
Right.
And so then and I don't want to get too crazy, but I will tell you that I have this river trip, and I get all this news, and I get all this, and I've gotten a couple of awards, and so Wilson Hurley writes me a letter, and he says, now Curt, I've been watching your work. I congratulate you on this, but your paintings. But then he says, your paintings are visual schizophrenia. And I like the one that you just did, but I've hated your paintings in the last whatever. And he said they're based. Your design elements on Oriental rugs is not good. I go, well, first of all, I've not discussed that with anyone. I had been playing with this concept of using Oriental rugs as a design element in paintings, and so I was moving stuff around and changing and creating borders and patterns with based on those rugs, which actually some of them were really cool, and but it didn't fit his sense of composition.
Right.
And I'd been doing a lot of plein air painting, and so I've been doing big,
gestural stuff.
Big gestural stuff outdoors, and so he was a little, he didn't like what I was doing then, and so. I didn't know how to respond to that.
I'm sure that was devastating.
It was kind of like,
yeah.
Okay, so it gave me something to think about. I think part of it is that he just saw all this sort of like notoriety going on around my work. And so I understand it. Yes. I do understand it.
And he's getting a little older. He's been at the top of the pinnacle.
And so a couple of years later, I'm in the Prix de West show, and so I did this great big Grand Canyon. And it's got this big storm gushing down in the center of it, and and light, and all the stuff that I like to do, and so then he came up to me. He was in that show that year, and he said, "Curt, I know you were disappointed that you didn't win Prix de West, but you never will, because they have a Grand Canyon, and it's Wilson Hurley." Mm. Okay.
Also has to be devastating to hear that.
And so I go like, well, that was kind of mean, And so maybe that's true. But it was that older artist thing kind of happening, and I mean, I understand the emotion behind it.
Sure.
I understand that totally now. I understand that.
Right.
And so but that really stuck with me. It made me kind of, it's like, damn it.
Yeah, it gave you a goal to win it, basically, I would think.
And so that really did kind of become my goal, which, by the way, I did win in 2007. And the thing that was really kind of interesting is that he was pretty ill then. And so he came up to me right after I won Prix de West, and he hugged me and he congratulated me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're all humans.
Yeah.
And we have our frailties, and but we also have our genuine, for him to do that.
I think that was way out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
But it meant a great deal to me.
Yes. Well, he was your mentor.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. When you take those things very seriously.
Oh.
I mean, that can be painful. Maynard Dixon had the same thing with Charles Loomis. And Loomis stuck it to him on many occasions, and he called him Pops, right? Mm-hmm. So when it did, it just devastated him.
Yeah, of course. I think the competitor in Hurley was a different man than the teacher.
Yes.
And I understand that. But I think my takeaway from that is that if I see the young guys come into the shows and they're really good, and some of those paintings, some of them are brilliant, and so I just tell them, they're really good, and there's only one way for me to get around that, which is to try to do a better painting.
Yes,
that's the only way to do it. So,
and I would think to some extent, and I may be wrong, but I would think at this point in your career, you've won, 13 awards. That winning, while is lovely when it happens, is not your goal. That your goal
it's never been my goal.
Yeah, your goal is to put the best creative force of art that you can do.
That's always my goal.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's always my goal. Yeah. I just want a really great painting. That's what I want. Yes. I just want to knock the other guys in the teeth.
Yeah, you want to do. Well, I mean, there is that when you're there. I mean, you can't help it.
It is.
You see, you have all the people that you admire, and they're competitors too, but they're also colleagues, and they're putting their best work together. And you're looking at it.
When they come up and tell you that you've done a good drawing or you've done a good painting, it takes a lot for those guys to do that. They don't say it lightly.
Right.
And so, I understand that. It's got to be a really good painting for them to say that.
Yes. Yeah, I would think that's true.
And when that happens, that's the best moment.
Yeah. That's the highlight of the show.
Those are the highlights of the show.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, I can see that.
I did a drawing of Conquistadors year before last, but it was, and so John Moyers told me it was a good drawing, and that was like, oh my God, John said that.
Yeah,
he's like, because he's like the best of the best.
And so. and he is going to tell the truth always when it
Yeah,
comes to
he
that.
does.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And
Yeah,
Terry
for sure.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're brutal.
Yeah, that's good. Well, they learn from Lahi, and you've
Of course.
trained with him too, so
Of
you
course.
know what it is. And it's do you want to be better, or you just want to hear good things? You know? Terry had an amazing painting there as well this year.
Oh, amazing.
Well, two
Beautiful.
of them actually. The one with the moon, and then the
Oh,
one with
awesome.
the landscape. The one landscape was just brilliant.
beautiful.
My God. Yeah, and John also had a big, huge, major
Nice,
painting too.
nice painting.
Yeah, they're wonderful. And you guys have had a long relationship too, right?
Yeah, we're painting buddies, friends. I think it's kind of like a lot of professions, is that you don't have a commonality with a lot of people, but with them, we have the shows, we have the art, we have the friends, we have
Travel.
We have to travel together, and so we've become really good friends.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this business, quite
they're,
frankly.
they're lovely, wonderful people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about the art business, as a dealer, is getting to spend time and knowing the artists and sharing your lives with them. I think a lot of dealers don't take advantage of this because they're more interested in the monetary component of it, and they should be learning about the creativity part of it and absorbing, what these individuals bring. I mean, it's, but again, I see it from a different point, maybe. old school. I don't know what it is.
Well, I will tell you that I do really truly believe in the gallery system. I think that I would not be where I am without Christy Mulring.
Yes.
I know that. I mean, it's true. I wouldn't just. I think that you gallery owners make the art visible and
yes, I think it's an important component of an artist's career.
I agree. I think it is.
There's a few people that can do it without it, but they're rare.
They're rare. They're really super rare.
Yeah, because it's so hard to do the marketing, the exposure part, all that. Even build the museum shows, museum collections and those kind of things too. As an artist, you should be painting. That's what you want to do.
That's right.
Because
I don't want to worry about that stuff.
Yes, and if you can find the right person or persons to help you along that journey, and it can be a long journey, right? I mean, I have artists that have been with me for 30 years. So a lot of artists, actually.
I was with Trailside Galleries for 50 years before they closed the doors.
Yeah,
that's a long time.
That is a very
I was there a long time.
Yeah, that has to be a little devastating. They're still available. They still are in business, but it's a different thing because it's an online business at this point. Yeah, I get it.
But that brick and mortar place where you could walk in and fall in love with painting or drawing is.
Yeah, it's not the same. Yeah, it isn't. I could be an online gallery only. Tomorrow I could shut my doors and be an online gallery, but I would lose. I'd lose all the fun of what this business is.
I think meeting the clients, connecting artists with, and seeing them. It's all part of it.
Yes.
I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why when we said it's not so surprising you did well at the Prix de West, because so many of these clients already knew had an emotional bond to you
already.
As well. Exactly.
Already.
And they're like, they're rooting for you, and they they want you to succeed, which is half the battle sometimes. So,
I think it is.
So you've been doing this now 50 years, right? More?
Probably more.
A little more. And
I will be 73 in August. So.
Yes. And so what's your takeaways for younger artists that look at you? Because, I mean, a lot of people will listen to this podcast and go, he's kind of an icon, right? So they'll take your words very seriously. I'm going to throw that on to you because, I mean, you have had this life, which has been very successful, but not easy. It wasn't like it was just handed to you. You're a kid from Farmington.
No, I still work.
Yeah.
I work really hard.
I know you do.
So I think for young artists, first of all, keep track of your paintings the best you can. Take photographs of all of your art. You're going to want it in the future.
That's great
You're
advice.
going to want it. Keep your records and know what you painted and where you sent it, and because you're going to want to know that stuff later.
Yes. And historians are going to want to know.
Yeah, and historians are wanting to know that stuff.
Yes.
So you want to keep track of all that stuff the best you can. During the 70s and 80s are kind of like a blur in my brain. You know?
Right.
It's kind of, did I really do that painting?
Right.
It's like, what painting was that?
Right.
And but anyway, that was kind of like my first thing. But just try to stay connected to yourself. It's really easy to get pulled away by people wanting you to do this or do that or do all kinds of stuff. And, follow your instincts. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think artists have very good instincts, actually.
I think they do.
Yes.
I think just follow them. If you'll trust your instincts, you'll paint what you need to paint.
Yes. Yeah. Don't try to find the next trend or the next thing that's going to do it for you, because it's not going to.
I've been working on this. Oh my God, for the Forever book, but it's been a long time. But I first started working with Susan Campbell, Dr. Susan Campbell, and she did an early book for me, she did the manuscript, and then we worked on a second manuscript, and so anyway, what's interesting is that my grandson has written the manuscript for my book. But there's something happens when you have to write a book about yourself, or when you have to put down and describe paintings, and when you've done a documentary about yourself,
Right, which you have done.
which I have done, you learn a lot about yourself. And I had to go back and understand these paintings. And Susan Campbell says, well, we have nothing from you during the 80s. And I go like, I hated the 80s. It's like, so I forgot about it. I just forgot about these paintings, and they kind of looked, and they were gone. And then I went back and studied those paintings, started looking at them and trying to understand my emotional content behind those paintings. And now they're my favorite paintings.
Why is that?
Because I went through all this turmoil in my life, and all of my emotions showed up in those paintings in that time frame, and some of them were really tight, some of them were really bold, some of them were very, very soft, but they all reflected what was going on in my life. And now I see them and I look at them with a different vision, and they're actually really good.
Can you look at an individual painting and remember that moment who you were, what was going on in your life?
Absolutely.
I would think that's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't always know what it is that I'm trying to say when I paint them. In fact, I rarely know what I'm really doing. But I see it later. It's so obvious to me. 10 years later, you look at it and go, oh, that's why I was doing that.
Yeah, it's cathartic.
Yeah, actually they are.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, it's a therapy, really, in some ways. The way you create. You can see it. Dixon said that, too. He could look at a person's painting and tell what, was going on in his
you can
life.
tell what's going on.
Yeah, there was. I saw a shoulder the other day in a book, and I was like, oh, my God, the pain that man must have been feeling at that moment. I could see it in the pain.
Yeah, you can see
it.
it.
Like, oh, my God. But that can be good, too. I mean, it's just a different take that even in a landscape, you can bring out the dark clouds, the rain, the motion, all the energy, which can, even if you might be in a kind of a dark place, the person can relate to the painting in a way they don't even know why.
Yeah,
but
of course
that
not.
may be the reason why that they can see it. You just go, oh gosh, this one really speaks to me, right? Well, that's why. That's very interesting.
Yeah, if they have emotion behind them, that usually shows up.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I look for, actually, by the way. The most important thing, I think, in a painting is, can I feel an emotion of any type? Happiness, joy, anger, whatever it may be, you know? And
I think my happiest paintings, though, were probably during the 90s. And I just painted a lot and did a lot of great big paintings outdoors. And I think they were those paintings have a lot of joy in them, and I enjoy them.
Yes.
A great deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this book that your grandson's working on too, when is there a time frame when that may come out?
I don't know. It will be going to Susan McGarry shortly, where she's going to edit the book for me.
Good.
I've had Damien. He actually writes horror stories. So it's kind of like, he makes falling off of a horse sound like it's an event of the century. But anyway, no, he's pretty amazing. He's an amazing young writer. And so it's been edited by Rick Hochschild, who's a geologist, to make sure I got all my geology correct.
Right.
And also by Danielle, who used to work for me, has a master's degree in art and literature. And so before we send it off to Susan to do the final edit, but Damien's done an amazing job, and it really reads like a novel.
I was about to say, that's the best ones.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And is it?
It's a good story.
Is it just Grand Canyon?
The focus is on Grand Canyon on this book. However, I also put in all the award-winning paintings I've done,
nice.
and the paintings that have a huge influence on my development. Like there's some of my Parisian stuff is in there, and a couple of my Bali paintings. When I went to Bali, everything became primaries after that for a while, and so. It's funny how this, an experience will change
Absolutely.
the direction of your work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I see all that stuff now. I didn't see it then.
Right. You have to retrospectively go
back.
back. And will you have a show or anything like that with the book?
I'm not quite certain yet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we're going to do. When you're self-publishing a book, you kind of just...
Right.
I don't know how to do this stuff, Mark. I don't know how.
That's where that dealer comes in.
It kind of falls into place, but
well, it's such an important, monumental time. That book will be that. It's a retrospective of your life and how you see it.
It is.
It's also, I think, one of those things that needs to be celebrated in a format of where people can see art too.
Of course. I think it's time. It's very necessary.
Yes.
I think that this is the next step in my a book that comes out later after an artist's career. I think you need to do it while you're still here.
Absolutely.
And so it's my clear voice coming
Absolutely.
through.
Right.
And no one's making judgments on who I am, and I'm making my own judgments.
Right.
And so.
I say anybody that's listening who's a museum, this would be a great opportunity to have. You have the catalog already done. Now you just have to
catalog's done.
Yeah, all you have to do is put all the paintings together. Not not an easy task, but definitely a worthwhile task. I could see that.
Yeah. I think I'll follow up with the second book about all of my travel paintings and all of my foo paintings, my apple trees and all the stuff that I've done.
Yeah, but you love them just as much.
I've done a lot of different paintings from a lot of places.
Right, I knew that actually. I've seen them. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful paintings are beautiful paintings.
So
regardless of subject.
But the focus of this book is the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Grand Canyon, of course, would be a perfect place to have it as well.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and one would expect. And so, if people want to find you, how do they get a hold of you? Let's say they want to buy your art. How do they find you? How do they get a hold to get your art?
At the moment, I'm only showing at the Prix de West show.
Yes.
And so I'm not doing any other shows. I have work at Nidra Matucci's gallery and at Claggett Ray Galleries in Edwards, Colorado.
Yeah.
So, and I just don't produce a lot. So
look out to those, either Prix de West, Claggett Ray, Nidra Matucci.
Yeah.
And what about you? Do you have a website or?
Oh, I do.
Yeah. So that's another way they can get a hold of you.
Oh, yeah. I think
is that just CurtWalters.com or?
CurtWalters.com.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
Yeah. And it's got all the stuff in there. I recently decided to add on all of kind of like some of my studies and stuff for my Conquistador project. And so that's kind of on there now. And
Instagram? You have an Instagram account?
Well, my daughter does it for me, but it's kind of like I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, there's a lot of people that are that way, right?
Yeah,
as long as the material's getting out, that's the key.
Yeah.
So, and that's probably Curt Walters as well.
I'm sure it is. I don't know how to do it.
He's a painter. He paints. I get it.
I don't know how to do that stuff.
Your daughter's going, oh, God.
Oh, Dad.
This is your opportunity. Hit the website. Hit the Instagram.
Oh, she does all that stuff for me. So that's her business. And so she does the websites and she does all that stuff.
So any final words you want to let anybody know?
I don't know. I'm still working. I'm still here.
Yeah. Thanks to Tom, I'm sure. That's a good one to put in at the end.
Oh yeah. Tom keeps me going.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Well, we're thrilled that you took the time. You came all the way down from Sedona just to be in live. And and it's the best way. I love doing interviews where I can look the person and really see their face and see their emotion.
I think it's those are the best ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not nearly as tongue-tied when I'm talking to you as I am when trying to do it over the
it's just a little
something.
bit more sterile. It's hard. And then there's a glitch or something and you're like, oh God, or a stop and stutter kind of a thing with the pacing of just the internet.
Yeah.
So Curt, thank you so much for coming down. I'm a fan and
thank you, Mark. Thank you.
We'll just I guess I'll see you. Yeah. You seem to be bumping into each other more often.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, your Charles Bloom's books are wonderful. And
thank you.
You're bumping artists off. It's kind of
well,
I don't want to be one of your bumped off artists.
I won't do it. Well, I have actually a new book that I just finished. I just sent it to my editor yesterday, which is and it's actually Charles is in it, but it's a new art detective. So this will be the first time I'll tell anybody about it, which is Weston Blackwood Art Detective Series. So that's going to be out maybe Christmas, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, your brain works so cool.
Yeah, so cool. It's fun to bring a new kind of beat to what I want to do. So it's more.
But it's got your books always have all these artists in it and references to the world that I run in, and this
will have the same. I can assure you, just on a different beat.
It's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
I'm trying to think if I put one of your paintings in yet. Sometimes I may have even mentioned you in one of my books. Yeah,
maybe I haven't gotten to that one yet.
Yeah, it's very possible. Yeah, that happens on occasion. Yeah.
Well, talk about an artist being falling into the canyon, I guess, or something.
No, or just a collector might have a great Curt Walters on his wall, right?
Yeah,
something like that. So if that does occasionally. I put something like that in.
Yeah.
If I haven't, I shall.
Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun. And the gallery looks great, by the way. And
thank you. Yeah, let's go out and look at art.
Yeah, I know.
Right. You probably got to get back to Sedona too today, right?
Yeah, we're going to drive back today.
Yeah. All right. Curt Walters, thank you so much.